Okay, so our objective today in Algebra 1 is to factor trinomials in the form x squared plus bx plus c. But before we actually get into factoring trinomials in the form x squared plus bx plus c, let's review a multiplying problem. Let's look at x plus 3 times x minus 7. To multiply x plus 3 times x minus 7, we distribute. X times x is x squared. X times negative 7, negative 7x. 3 times x, 3x. 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. When we combine our like terms, we end up with x squared minus 4x minus 21. Now, what you should notice is that this 3 and negative 7, it multiplies to negative 21, which is right there, and it adds to negative 4, which is in the middle. So that's our rule to factor. We look for two numbers that multiply to c, which is that last number in the trinomial, and adds to b, which is the middle number in the trinomial. So two numbers that multiply to c and adds to b. So x squared plus 10x plus 24 is our first problem. So two numbers that multiply to c and add up to b means we're looking for two numbers that multiply to 24. So some numbers that multiply to 24, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Now we need it to multiply to be positive 24 and add up to positive 10. In order to multiply to a positive, they're either both positive or they're both negative. Now in order for this 10 to be a positive, they both have to be positive. So positive 1, positive 24 doesn't make 10. Positive 2 plus positive 12 doesn't make 10, it makes 14. Positive 3 plus 8 doesn't make 10, it makes 11. So our answer has to be the 4 and the 6. And the way we write it is x plus 4, x plus 6. 4 times 6 is 24, 4 plus 6 is 10. Okay, so let's try another one, number 2. X squared minus 16x plus 48. So this time we need two numbers that multiply to 48 and add up to negative 16. So remember, in order to multiply to a positive, they're both positive or both negative. But in order for us to get a negative 16, that means they both have to be negative. So for 48, it's 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12, 6 and 8. Now, both of them are negative. Negative 1 and negative 48. Does that make negative 16? No. Negative 2, negative 24. Does that make negative 16? No. Negative 3, negative 16. Can that make negative 16? No. Negative 4, negative 12. Does that make negative 16? Yes. So our answer is x minus 4, x minus 12. And you can also write it in the other order. You could write x minus 12, x minus 4. It's the same answer. Doesn't matter the order. So number 3, x squared plus 3x minus 28. So this time it has to multiply to a negative 28. In order to get a negative when you multiply, one of the numbers has to be negative. So in order to get a negative when you multiply, one number has to be a negative. Remember, positive and negative is a negative, negative and positive is a negative. So what we're going to do is make our list like normal, 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7. Now we're going to play around with negative signs to see how we can get a 3. So if I try negative 1 and positive 28, I don't get a 3. If I try 1 and negative 28, I don't get a 3. If I try negative 2 and 14, I don't get a 3. If I try 2 and negative 14, still don't get a 3. So 4 and 7, if I try negative 4 and positive 7, do I get a positive 3? Yeah. So negative 4, positive 7. X minus 4, x plus 7. So number 4, x squared minus 2x minus 8. Same kind of problem because our number multiplies to a negative. It means one of them has to be a negative. So 1 and 8, 2 and 4. So if one of them's negative, we try and put it here. Negative 1 and 8, does that make negative 2? No. 1 and negative 8, does that make negative 2? No. 2 and 4. If I try negative 2 and positive 4, negative 2 and positive 4 makes positive 2. And I want a negative, so that doesn't work. So move the negative sign over to the 4. 2 and negative 4, does that make negative 2? Yes. X plus 2, x minus 4. And remember, the x and x comes from this x squared. X times x makes that x squared. Remember, you can also write this as x minus 4 and x plus 2. Different order. But the sign has to be the same. You have to have negative 4, have to have positive 2. So number 5, t squared minus 10t minus 39. Did I change the problem when I put in a t? No. All I did was change the variable. The steps are the same. So two numbers that multiply to negative 39 and add up to negative 10 would be 1 and 39 and 3 and 13. Well, if I look at 1 and 39, there's no way to get a 10 out of that, whether it's even with a negative 10. There's still no way to get a 10 out of that. 3 and 13, how can I get a negative 10 from 3 and 13? If I try a negative 3, that's a positive 10, so that won't work. So if I try negative 13, there's my negative 10. X plus 3, x minus 13. So remember, two numbers that multiply to c and add up to b. Make your list, try out the negative signs, and see which one works. So number 6. W squared minus 20w minus 125. So negative 125 is 1 and 125, 5 and 25. It's a negative, so that means one of them has to be a negative. Well, 1 and 125, there's no way to get a 20 out of that. I need a negative 20, so for 5 and 25, which one has to be negative? The 25, because 5 and negative 25 makes negative 20. So x plus 5, x minus 25. Number 7, a squared plus 15a plus 54. So I look at that 54, so numbers that multiply to 54, 1 and 54, 2 and 27, 3 and 18, 6 and 9. Now that 54 is positive, and so is that 15. So if they're both positive, then these both need to be positive. So 1 and 54 doesn't give me 15, 2 and 27 doesn't, 3 and 18 doesn't. Has to be 6 and 9. So x plus 6, x plus 9. Now I'm going to give you some problems to try on your own. So after you copy down the problems, pause the video so you can make sure that you did them correctly. So you're going to copy these 7 problems and you're going to try them on your own to make sure that you can do them correctly. And to do that, you'll need to pause the video for as long as you need to make sure that you get them all done. And then just hit play and I'll have the answers for you. So copy down those 7 problems and then hit pause. And so hopefully you actually paused it so you can see if you know them on your own. But here are the answers. For number 8, x minus 2 and x minus 18, because negative 2 and negative 18 makes positive 36. Negative 2 plus negative 18 makes negative 20. For number 9, x minus 5, x minus 7, because negative 5 times negative 7 is positive 35. Negative 5 plus negative 7 is negative 12. For number 10, x plus 20, x minus 8, because 20 times negative 8 is negative 160. 20 plus negative 8 is 12. Number 11, x minus 6, x plus 3, because negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. For number 12, k minus 2, k plus 18, because negative 2 times 18 is negative 36. Negative 2 plus 18 is 16. For number 13, x minus 9, x plus 8, because negative 9 times 8 is negative 72. Negative 9 plus 8 is negative 1. Remember, when there's no number there, it's a 1. Number 14, x minus 7, x plus 5, because negative 7 times 5 is negative 35. Negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. Your assignment for this is page 544, numbers 1 to 36, and you're going to omit numbers 16 and 32. And you're going to ignore what the directions say and just do it the way we did it. The directions say guess and check your work. You don't need to do any of that. You just need to do it the way we did it.